Well, fourthly, the Bible plainly forbids making any image for worship and bowing down to any image. I'd like to read to you Exodus 20 and verse 4. And I'll tell you what, if something bothered God 1,400 years before Christ, I have a strong feeling it still bothers Him. And if God would go to the extent of saying that anyone who makes an image and bows down to it is to be stoned to death, and the image burned, and if people actually were killed for worshiping images, I don't think God has changed at all. I want to read to you from the Ten Commandments in chapter 20 of Exodus, verses 4 and 5. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is on the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God. Did you know God is jealous? Jealousy is good. Did you know that there are 9 human emotions that the psychiatrists and psychologists have identified that humans have? And did you know that God, in the Scriptures, has 8 of them? You know the only one that He doesn't have? Fear. That's something that God has no concept of, and we should not either. But God is jealous. Why? Because God wants intimacy with us. He doesn't want you... I mean, it would be like a fellow that has a choice between his wife or a picture of his wife, and he just oogles over the picture. The woman would take it away from him and say, "What's wrong with you?" I mean, if you have a choice between the real thing or a representation, which would you take? The real thing. Continuing in Exodus 20. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God. I visit the iniquity of the fathers and the children to the 3rd and 4th generation of those that hate me. And he goes on and on with the 10 Commandments. You say, that's in the Old Testament. Okay, let's look in the New Testament then. Let's look first of all at John's Gospel, chapter 4. Because that's what impacts us, especially here. And that's why I am a firm believer, biblically, that we are not to have any holy hardware. What's holy hardware? It's all the stuff that people need to kind of feel like they're worshiping. We should be able to all trample across the street, sit in the parking lot in the middle of it, carry our chairs with us, and you should be able to feel as worshipful as you feel in here. We ought to be able to go, as we do for sunrise service, to Gordon Johnson's Pond in East Greenwich, and stand around that pond and freeze and sing hymns on Resurrection Morn and worship God as much as is in a vaulted ceiling with stained glass windows and organ music going. Why? Because it says in John 4:24, God is spirit, and those who worship Him must worship Him in spirit and truth, not in holy hardware and formality, not in liturgy and all types of incantations and pagan rituals, in spirit and in truth. We have to be careful that we don't attach vestments or some type of sequence of events or some type of external appearance of the building we're in with worship. Those have nothing to do with worship. Some things can detract from worship, yes. The Scriptures tell us that God is abundantly concerned with modesty in worship. That's all the way through the Old Testament. He says, don't come before me unless you come modestly. God is very concerned that we come reverently. So that means we don't come in here joking and carrying on and thinking about everything and comparing all the sports scores and talking about your favorite whatever, and then think you can click instantly into worship. Worship takes time. We have to prepare our hearts. This day of worship begins really on Saturday night, when you decide you're not going to stay out so late on Saturday night. When you decide you're going to prepare your children, if you have them, for worship on Sunday. You're going to go over whatever they're supposed to know for Sunday school. You're going to pray with them. You're going to get them prepared to come in an attitude of worship. But that has nothing to do with holy hardware. That's reverence and that's respect to God. But the Roman Catholic Church not only has images, but it encourages people to pray to images, to crucifixes, to images of Mary and saints, and to wear them around your neck. And in crisis times, to grab those images and hold on to them rub them and feel like there's some power coming from rubbing that medallion of a saint. Things really got out of hand in Martin Luther's day, and by the way, they're still out of hand now with images. But in Martin Luther's day, and one of the reasons for the Reformation was his soul was so grieved at how devout people would bow down before an image and beseech that image to set loose their uncle who had died. And that they would offer a Mass before an altar where a host was elevated and believe that that took time out of someone's purgatory time. And that grieved his heart. Not only because there's no purgatory, but because they were bowing down in worship. Well, the Roman Church tells us that there are to be images, that they are to be venerated, and that tradition violates the Bible, and the commandments of men take the place of the commandments of God. And whenever the commandments of men supersede the commandments of God, that's sin.